What is up, weather enthusiasts? I'm your host, Pat's Path Predictor. Let's get right into the weather. Alright, so here's the situation we have for you, ladies and gentlemen. We are seeing a very major escalation in terms of what is now Invest 97L. Yes, just about an hour ago, at the time of recording this video, this was designated as Invest 97L, and based on satellite and National Hurricane Center chances, this system is starting to organize at a very fast rate. And the system is expected to head towards the Yucatan Strait and towards the Florida Panhandle or Big Bend region of Florida. And this is a very serious situation that we're going to be paying attention to all week as landfall appears imminent on Friday. So let's go ahead and dive right into this right here from the National Hurricane Center. We have two areas of interest that we're going to be talking about. The first one obviously is going to be a lot more to cover because this is a very serious threat, especially in 3 to 4 days or so. And the other one's just kind of something that's going to stay out in the main development region over here. We're going to talk a little bit about it in here, but ultimately this is going to be our main area of concern and main area of analysis in today's video because this does pose a threat to potentially tens of millions of people down the road. So let's go ahead and dive right into this. What we are seeing right now, let's go ahead and read this. Disorganized showers and thunderstorms located over the northwestern Caribbean Sea and portions of Central America are associated with a broad area of low pressure. Environmental conditions appear favorable for development of the system, and a tropical depression or tropical storm is likely to form during the next few days while moving northward across the northwestern Caribbean Sea and Gulf of Mexico. Regardless of development, this disturbance is expected to produce heavy rains over portions of Central America during the next several days. Interests in the northwestern Caribbean, Yucatan Peninsula of Mexico, and western Cuba should closely monitor the progress of this feature. Later this week, the system is forecast to move generally northward across the Gulf of Mexico, and interests along the northern and northeastern Gulf Coast should also monitor the progress of this system. 40% chance of formation in the next 48 hours, 80% chance in the next 7 days. Let's go ahead and show you what it was this morning. It was 10 and 70. Now it's 40 and 80. Things have been escalating all this morning. We're seeing a lot more convection starting to fire off. We're also seeing more data starting to plow in at a very quick rate. And we also know that hurricane hunters are expected to come out and go into the system starting tomorrow. Here's the hurricane hunters. Their first flight is tomorrow at 1 o'clock in the afternoon Central Time. And then the next flights are going to be on the 24th. That's really good news because we need data and information to determine if this system is going to have a closed low or not quicker than what we were originally anticipating. Regardless of that, though, this is some very good news that we are seeing right here from the National Hurricane Center, right here with hurricane hunters going out, because we need that data, we need that information to determine what's going to be happening down the road, because we're seeing a lot of stuff going on, and we're seeing a lot of situations where ultimately you have these kinds of systems, these kind of gyre systems really start off and then rapidly escalate as they approach the United States. So we're going to go ahead and watch that and pay attention to it. We also have this area of interest that's been steadily increasing in chances right here. A tropical wave located near the west coast of Africa is expected to move westward during the next several days. Environmental conditions could support some gradual development of the system, and a tropical depression could form during the middle part or to later part of the week while it moves westward over the eastern and central tropical Atlantic. Now has a 50% probability of development in the next 7 days. It's very much a coin flip right here. It's pretty much a coin flip. It's pretty much a 50-50 probability if this is going to develop or not. This is heads right here. This is tails. Flip a coin. It landed on tails, so that's kind of the probabilities we're seeing there right there. Sorry, that was a little bit of a bit right there. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Like the video if you liked it. But anyway, here's the big situation that we have right here. This is a huge area of concern because, first of all, we've been noticing this all morning. I've been talking to my guys at Storms United all morning about this, and ultimately, this system has continued to escalate. This system has continued to go off, and the convection is starting to sustain a lot more. We're seeing this huge burst right there. This was designated as Invest 97L just about an hour ago. Here's the situation that we have. Here's the latest that we have. Its current location is 15.3 degrees north, 32 83.2 degrees west. Maximum sustained winds are currently 20 knots or 23 miles per hour. Minimum central pressure is relatively low at 1,007 millibars, and the radius of maximum winds is 120 nautical miles. I do want to make this a point of interest, though, a point of note. This system is relatively broad right here. It's a relatively broad system right now. It's expected to tighten up pretty considerably as it organizes and develops and moves through the Caribbean Sea and towards the Big Bend or Panhandle of Florida. So I do want to make that very clear because this is starting off as a relatively broad system, but it is expected to tighten, and we will show you those models in a little bit. But ultimately, that's the kind of stuff we are paying attention to. And I also want to go ahead and start, and it's because I want more time to do some model analysis with this. I'm going to go ahead and start with and looking at the conditions already. I usually don't do this until another few minutes because I have a few other things I want to get out of the way. But I want to go ahead and start with this because I want to get kind of spare more time for the models towards the end of the video. So if you could stick with me through that, that would be much appreciated. But anyway, here's what we have going on. What's going on in the Caribbean Sea? Very moist air is going on right now. We're seeing a bunch of convection firing off on all cylinders right now, and it's really mixing out a ton of that dry air, mixing out a ton of that just stuff that could intrude and slow down its intensification rate right there. But I'm also noticing, though, you are seeing some dry air in the Gulf of Mexico. Yes, you're seeing a little bit of moist air in the upper levels, especially in the eastern half of the Gulf over here, but you are noticing some dry air that's been persisting over there. I've been noticing that as well. I'm sure a lot of you have been noticing that as well. I'm going to say this right now. I think what we're going to see is a situation where we're going to have the outflow really just kind of push out and really just pretty much just wash all the dry air out. This is kind of one of those scenarios, kind of like what we saw with Hurricane Laura back in 2020. And the reason I say that is because, well, you have very ample moisture. You're going to see the system rapidly organize. It's already arguably rapidly organizing right now, and this eventually will be designated as a tropical depression. It's going to happen at some point. The question is when, and the quicker it does that, the quicker it'll get its act together, and the quicker it'll ultimately kind of consolidate itself and then start to take off as conditions continue to really take off and continue to improve across much of the Caribbean Sea. But what are these conditions that we're talking about, Patrick? Why are you making such a big deal about this? This is just an invest right now. Well, this is a rapidly escalating situation right now, and we have a lot more to go right here. Here's the global sea surface temperatures over here, where it's currently situated at, and it's in an area of about 30 degrees Celsius. That's 86 degrees Fahrenheit for those of you who live in the Gulf Coast right there that are watching the system and need to pay attention to it. 86 degrees Fahrenheit is more than conducive for development, really of any sort at that current point. And where it's headed for is an area of 31 degrees Celsius or 88 degrees Fahrenheit, with even some isolated areas of warmer waters across a lot of these areas over here. And you're also seeing that 31 degrees Celsius range go all the way through the loop current in the Gulf of Mexico right there. And so ultimately the sea surface temperature is piping hot for tropical development, and you're already arguably starting to see quite a bit of that as more data and more analysis continues to come in through the satellite imagery right there. You could arguably say you're already starting to see the effects of that right now. Let's go ahead and show you the ocean heat content. Shout out to Storm Teen for sending this, by the way, because this is a much more detailed map that I wanted to go ahead and show you. This is from Alex Borham from cyclonicwx.com. Shout out to you guys for providing this for us. I'm going to go ahead and quickly analyze this. But look at this right here. Where it's at right now is it's heading for it's not in a very conducive area of OHC. It's in an area of about 40 to 50 or so, at least at the current place it's situated right off the coast of Nicaragua, where the center that the tagged by the NHC is. But what you're noticing with this is, look at where it's going right there. You see, okay, it's going 40, then 50, and oh my God, we're going up to 200 OHC right here. And yeah, I've been telling you guys this. There is over 200 OHC in a lot of these areas in the Caribbean Sea, and not just there either, but also in the loop current right here. You're seeing a very large eddy area over here of 200 plus OHC. We all saw what Francine did with the Eddy over Texas. We all saw what Ida did back in 2021 with that 225 OHC Eddy. And also, for those of you who do not know, OHC is measured by how hot the water sea surface temperatures is and pretty much how deep down that goes. So ultimately, if you're seeing 86 degree Fahrenheit water go well over 300 feet deep, you're going to see this much OHC really blow up and really take off and everything of the sorts right there. But you're seeing over 200 OHC in much of the Caribbean Sea, and this is where the system is headed to. This is where the system is headed. It's not over this right now, and that really concerns me because if you're seeing all these numbers and all these values right now as a forecaster, as someone who studies tropical weather, as even a college student like I am, that really raises red flags for you because what you're also noticing is, let's go ahead and show you the wind shear component right here. Yes, there is some wind shear going on in the Caribbean Sea right here, but not all of it is attributed to just wind shear. Some of it is the system itself. Some of it is shear for sure. But where the shear is situated, it's at an angle where the outflow has really enhanced quite a bit, and you can also see this on satellite imagery right here. You're noticing that outflow really ramping up over here off the coast of Cuba, through Cuba, and into the Atlantic Ocean over here. That's going to help organize and consolidate the system very quickly, and that's the main stuff that I am continuing to raise alarm about and raise red flags about. Also, look at the Gulf of Mexico. That ridge kind of lifted up into much of the United States right here, and look where we're at right now. But yesterday we saw a ton of wind shear over here. Now you're seeing only 15 knots. And that wind shear value is expected to continue to go down, down, down as this system continues to organize. Very bad situation in terms of the Gulf of Mexico right here. We're going to have to watch it for sure. Let's go ahead and show you the shear and the moisture forecast right here, courtesy of the European run, just to kind of give you some context to this. Here's the shear forecast, 200 to 850 millibar wind shear. Let's go ahead and start. You see that wind shear really just collapse in the Gulf of Mexico, and that's expected to remain that way for quite a while. Over here, especially as the system starts to organize in the Caribbean Sea and move into the area over there. That's pretty interesting right there. And there is a bit of a trough that does move through and moves and kind of anchors itself to the west of the system. But that could be a situation where it helps enhance the outflow, especially if the ridge is going at this kind of angle right here, and really help consolidate and organize that very quickly. So we're going to have to keep tabs on that. Moisture component to all this, that's the anomalies. Here's the moisture component. You're seeing a huge moisture infusion in much of the Caribbean Sea right now. And yes, there is dry air in the Gulf of Mexico, but look what happens to it. You see all the dry air get pushed out by the outflow right here, and you see the system really start to organize and consolidate. And yes, there is a little bit of a trough that could push some dry air towards the system right there. But at least for from the time it gets into the Gulf of Mexico until the time where it's just about to make landfall, it's going to be open season in the Gulf of Mexico. I don't like saying those kinds of words, but it's going to be open season in the Northwestern Caribbean, and it's going to be open season in the Gulf of Mexico as the system moves through. So that's the kind of things that we need to watch right there. Now, we're going to go ahead and get to some more model analysis real quickly, because Invest 97L finally has their first intensity models of the system right here. Here's the intensity models. Every single one of these runs are anticipating at least hurricane strength. Majority of them at least Category 2. Some going up to major hurricane strength. That's why we need to watch this, folks. It's one of those sleeper situations where, okay, this system's starting to organize and develop, and then all of a sudden this thing's rapidly escalating, and you have maybe 72 hours to get ready for it. So what I would say to this is start preparing early, listen to local officials, and ask them, hey, how can we prepare for this system? This looks like it could get pretty bad. Tell us what we can do to prepare. They will help you out, give you some details, give you some information, and give you all the tools you need to prepare for this system. I'm not going to go over here and say, oh, you should do this to prepare. This is when you should prepare. That's not my job here, ladies and gentlemen. My job is to give you all the weather information. It's the local officials' job to give you all the preparation information, so I defer to them respectfully so that way they can educate you and inform you of what to do, because this is looking like a very serious situation, and I don't want to get in the way, and I don't want to confuse people as to how you should prepare, because I'm not an expert in terms of preparations or anything like that. But regardless of that rant behind, I'm sorry I went off on a bit of a tangent, but I also wanted to go ahead and show you this because the ship's rapid intensification forecast, this is pretty interesting right here. The ship's forecast on its first run is already going for a major hurricane, and its max winds, it gets up to about 100 knots before making landfall and then dissipating over Georgia over there. That's the 5-day forecast that they have right there. I think it's going to dissipate a little bit further inland right there. But the max potential intensity, it really has a high ceiling, ladies and gentlemen. Really has a really high ceiling. There's not going to be much wind shear as it starts to head towards the Gulf of Mexico, or even in the Gulf of Mexico, where it's going to be situated and moving through the Gulf Stream, not the Gulf Stream, but the loop current. That's a huge red flag. That's a huge concern right there, because that could really escalate situations like that. And you see there's not much dry air in the area or anything like that. And you see plenty of warm water, over 30 plus degrees Celsius across a lot of these areas in the Gulf and Caribbean Sea, like we talked about earlier. So that's the kind of stuff we're paying attention to. And this is the kind of stuff we all need to be watching for, especially for those in the Panhandle, the Big Bend of Florida, southwestern Georgia, and a bunch of other areas. Let's go ahead and show you now some model runs that we have pulled up for you. We're going to go ahead and show you the 12Z runs right here, because this has been really escalating over the last little while. We're going to go ahead and start with the GFS right here, because this was the one thing that broke it open. The 12Z GFS really wants the system to organize in the next 18 to 24 hours, rapidly intensify from there, get up to Category 1 strength as it moves through the Yucatan Strait, Category 2 as it crosses into there, then major hurricane strength as it moves through the loop current, Category 4 intensity as it makes landfall near the coast of Florida. We can go ahead and zoom in on this a little bit. We're going to go ahead and go to the Western Atlantic over here, just to kind of give you a zoomed-in view of this. 935 millibar system, that's a mid to high-end Category 4, ladies and gentlemen. Now, I want to make this perfectly clear. I'm not saying this is going to happen, because the satellite imagery on this makes this look like a Michael repeat or Michael 2.0 repeat. I'm not saying this is going to happen. I want to make that perfectly clear. This is not going to this is not likely going to happen, at least not in this way. Things are still uncertain. Things are still very uncertain right now. Take this with a grain of salt. I'm just here giving you all the data and all the information right here. Let's go ahead and show you the CMC as well. The CMC has been a bit wonky. It hasn't been initializing correctly over the last several days, but I also do want to show it just to give you some context to show you that there is some spread with this. CMC wants the system to be a Category 1 hurricane. Still a hurricane, but definitely a weaker situation than the GFS. Here's the NavGem that we have pulled up for you. I don't think the NavGem quickly really operates that. I'll go ahead and pull up the icon then. Here's the icon run. System organizes, develops pretty quickly, moves through the Yucatan Strait as a tropical storm, then intensifies to hurricane strength, gets down to a 984 millibar Category 1 hurricane, makes landfall in the Panhandle of Florida, and then kind of moves inland from there. So ultimately, we have a situation where things are rapidly escalating. Here's what we have going on. We're seeing all this stuff going on. We're also seeing a situation where this is now an invest instead of just an area of interest or anything like that. This is now Invest 97L. It's one of those gyre systems that tend to have a very difficult time forecasting. It's one of those difficult forecast situations right there. But ultimately, all the conditions that I'm taking a look at are screaming that this thing's going to rapidly escalate and rapidly intensify down the road, whether it starts in the northwestern Caribbean Sea or does it through the loop current and just escalates from there. So this is all stuff we're going to continue to update you on. This is all stuff we're going to continue to monitor for you guys, and this is stuff we're going to have to keep you updated here on the Pat's Path Predictor channel. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new. It helps us out, helps us get more people engaged with weather, and it helps me make more videos like these. If you want to come talk about this tropical system in our Discord server, it's Storms United. Be sure to join it. The link is in the end screen over there, as well as in the description down below. Also, shout out to Daniel as an official sponsor of the Pat's Path Predictor Patreon. He's been a huge supporter for the last little while, so shout out to him for all the support. If you want to join him and be an official sponsor or a friend of Pat, be sure to join the Patreon. There's 2 tier choices you can pick from. It's the first link in the description down below. And with that being said, have a wonderful day, guys. Stay safe.